Natural psychedelics have been entangled in controversy for decades. To many people, these substances invoke fear, suspicion, and moral disdain. The term psychedelic often conjures up images of reckless behavior, drug abuse, and chaotic hallucinations. This stigma has persisted, despite a growing body of scientific evidence supporting their potential therapeutic benefits. Today, we will challenge this outdated narrative. We will explore what natural psychedelics truly are, the scientific mechanisms behind their effects, their historical use in various cultures, and why society has turned against them. Finally, we'll discuss how we can overcome the stigmatization of these substances to unlock their full potential for humanity. Natural psychedelics, also known as entheogens, are chemical compounds derived from plants, fungi, or other organisms that induce altered states of consciousness. Some of the most well-known examples include psilocybin, found in certain mushrooms, DMT, the active ingredient in ayahuasca, and mescaline, found in peyote and the San Pedro cactus. From a scientific perspective, these substances act on the brain's serotonin system, particularly by interacting with the 5-HT2A receptor. This receptor plays a crucial role in mood regulation, cognition, and perception. When these substances bind to the receptor, they induce changes in sensory perception, emotional response, and cognitive flexibility. Essentially, psychedelics create a temporary shift in the brain's normal patterns of activity, allowing for expanded awareness and novel insights. The subjective effects of psychedelics vary greatly depending on the substance, the dosage, and the context in which they are taken. Users may experience visual and auditory hallucinations, a sense of connection to nature or the universe, deep emotional release, or a dissolution of the ego, a state where the boundaries between oneself and the external world blur or disappear altogether. These effects have been described as profoundly spiritual or life-changing for many users. In clinical settings, psychedelics are being studied for their potential to alleviate symptoms of depression, anxiety, PTSD, and addiction by disrupting rigid thought patterns and emotional loops. These substances can offer users a fresh perspective on their lives and circumstances. Before psychedelics were demonized, they were revered. Long before Western societies discovered these substances, indigenous cultures across the globe were using them for spiritual, healing, and ceremonial purposes. Let's take psilocybin mushrooms as an example. The Mazatec people of Mexico have used these mushrooms for centuries in sacred rituals to communicate with the divine and heal the sick. Shamans in these communities believe that mushrooms allow them to enter the spirit world, where they can gain wisdom and insight to aid their people. Similarly, in the Amazon basin, ayahuasca, a brew containing the psychedelic compound DMT, has been used by indigenous tribes for millennia. Ayahuasca ceremonies, led by shamans, are deeply spiritual experiences meant to cleanse the body and mind, heal trauma, and foster a connection with the natural world. Participants often describe the experience as one of personal transformation and enlightenment. In North America, the Native American Church has long used peyote in religious ceremonies. The cactus, containing mescaline, is regarded as a sacred medicine that facilitates communication with the Great Spirit. Peyote ceremonies are tightly regulated and involve prayer, song, and introspection, creating a structured environment for healing and spiritual growth. For these cultures, natural psychedelics were, and still are, powerful tools for connecting with the divine, healing trauma, and achieving personal insight. They were seen as sacred, not as dangerous drugs. Their use was respected, integrated into rituals, and guided by spiritual leaders. So how did these sacred substances, used for thousands of years with reverence and respect, become demonized in the West? The answer lies in a mix of political, cultural, and social factors. Natural psychedelics first entered the Western consciousness in the mid-20th century, primarily through the research of chemists like Albert Hofmann, who synthesized LSD, and ethnobotanists like R. Gordon Wasson, who studied psilocybin mushrooms in Mexico. By the 1960s, psychedelics had become a cornerstone of the countercultural movement. The use of substances like LSD and psilocybin became synonymous with anti-establishment sentiments, free love, and the rejection of traditional societal norms. This association with rebellion and nonconformity made psychedelics a target for political suppression. In 1970, the United States, under President Richard Nixon, launched the War on Drugs, which sought to criminalize and eradicate the use of substances like LSD, psilocybin, and marijuana. The Controlled Substances Act classified these psychedelics as Schedule I drugs, meaning they were considered to have no currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. This classification placed psychedelics in the same category as heroin and cocaine, despite a lack of scientific evidence supporting such a harsh classification. The war on drugs was not just about public health, it was also a tool for political control. Nixon's administration viewed the counterculture as a threat to the social order, and by criminalizing the substances associated with it, they were able to suppress dissent and consolidate power. John Ehrlichman, a key advisor to Nixon, later admitted that the war on drugs was designed to target anti-war protesters and African Americans, groups that Nixon's administration saw as enemies. The demonization of psychedelics was not rooted in science, but in politics and fear. Misinformation campaigns and media hysteria painted psychedelics as dangerous and destructive, ignoring the centuries of use in other cultures and the emerging scientific evidence of their potential benefits. Despite decades of prohibition, the scientific community has never completely abandoned the study of psychedelics. In fact, recent years have seen a resurgence of interest in their potential therapeutic uses. One of the most promising areas of research is in the treatment of mental health conditions such as depression, anxiety, PTSD, and addiction. Studies conducted at institutions like Johns Hopkins University and Imperial College London have shown that psychedelics, particularly psilocybin, can produce profound, lasting improvements in mood and psychological well-being after just a few supervised sessions. How do psychedelics achieve these results? Researchers believe that these substances work by temporarily disrupting the brain's default mode network, or DMN, a network of brain regions responsible for self-referential thinking and the maintenance of the ego. For individuals suffering from conditions like depression or PTSD, the DMN can become overactive, trapping them in negative thought patterns and emotional loops. By quieting the DMN, psychedelics allow the brain to create new connections between regions that don't typically communicate with each other. This leads to a state of cognitive flexibility, where old habits of thought and behavior can be broken and new perspectives can emerge. In addition to their impact on the brain's connectivity, psychedelics often induce what researchers call mystical experiences, profound feelings of unity, transcendence, and insight that can lead to lasting changes in a person's outlook on life. These experiences are often cited by participants in psychedelic studies as the most meaningful and transformative moments of their lives. Organizations like the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, or MAPS, have been at the forefront of efforts to reintroduce psychedelics into mainstream medicine. MAPS has spearheaded clinical trials of MDMA-assisted therapy for PTSD, as well as research into the use of psilocybin for depression and anxiety. While the results of these studies are promising, the legal status of psychedelics remains a major barrier to further research and treatment. The Schedule I classification imposed by the war on drugs has made it difficult for scientists to study these substances, and it has prevented patients from accessing potentially life-saving treatments. Despite the growing body of evidence supporting the therapeutic potential of psychedelics, their demonization continues. In most countries, natural psychedelics like psilocybin, ayahuasca, and peyote remain illegal. This criminalization has profound consequences, not only for scientific research, but also for the people who might benefit from these substances. One of the most significant barriers to the acceptance of psychedelics is their Schedule I classification, which, as we mentioned earlier, means that they are considered to have no medical value and a high potential for abuse. This classification is outdated and not reflective of current scientific understanding. Studies have consistently shown that psychedelics are not addictive, and when used in controlled therapeutic settings, they have a low risk of harm. Pharmaceutical companies have also played a role in maintaining the demonization of natural psychedelics. These companies have a vested interest in promoting synthetic, patentable drugs over natural substances that cannot be patented. Psychedelics, which grow freely in nature, represent a threat to the profit-driven pharmaceutical industry. As a result, efforts to legalize or decriminalize these substances often face opposition from powerful corporate interests. In addition to legal and corporate barriers, there are still deep social stigmas surrounding psychedelics. Many people, influenced by decades of anti-drug propaganda, view psychedelics as dangerous and unpredictable. This stigma prevents open conversation and education about these substances and contributes to the marginalization of those who use them. To move beyond the stigma surrounding natural psychedelics, society must adopt a more nuanced, evidence-based approach. The first step is education. We need to challenge the decades of misinformation by providing clear, scientifically grounded information about what psychedelics are, how they work, and their potential benefits. Psychedelics are not inherently harmful or dangerous. When used responsibly and in the right context, they can offer profound healing and transformative experiences. For example, clinical trials have shown that psilocybin-assisted therapy can provide long-lasting relief from treatment-resistant depression, a condition that affects millions of people worldwide. Similarly, ayahuasca has been used to help individuals overcome trauma, addiction, and even terminal illness anxiety. But these benefits will only be realized if psychedelics are decriminalized, regulated, and made accessible to those who need them. Several regions are already leading the way in this regard. For example, in 2020, the state of Oregon passed Measure 109, which allows for the supervised, therapeutic use of psilocybin in licensed facilities. This is a monumental step in recognizing the potential of psychedelics as legitimate tools for mental health treatment. Other countries, such as Brazil and Peru, have long allowed the use of ayahuasca in religious ceremonies, recognizing its cultural and spiritual significance. By legalizing and regulating the use of natural psychedelics, these countries have created a framework that respects indigenous traditions while ensuring the safety and well-being of participants. However, education and legal reform are only part of the solution. We also need to foster a culture of responsibility and respect around the use of psychedelics. These substances are powerful, and they must be approached with care. While the risks of addiction or overdose are low, they can still cause psychological distress if used improperly. That's why integration is so important. Integration refers to the process of reflecting on and incorporating the insights gained during a psychedelic experience into one's everyday life. In therapeutic settings, integration is often guided by trained professionals who help individuals make sense of their experiences and apply them to their personal growth and healing. Outside of clinical contexts, integration can involve journaling, meditation, or talking with trusted friends or mentors. Another important aspect of responsible psychedelic use is ensuring that these substances are taken in supportive, controlled environments. Ceremonial settings, like those used by indigenous cultures, provide a structure that helps participants navigate the often intense and challenging nature of psychedelic experiences. In modern therapeutic settings, psychedelic-assisted therapy is conducted with trained professionals who provide guidance and support throughout the experience. By promoting responsible use and integration practices, we can reduce the risks associated with psychedelics and maximize their potential for healing and transformation. In conclusion, it's time for us to reevaluate our relationship with natural psychedelics. These substances have been demonized for too long, and the consequences of this demonization have been profound. We have lost decades of potential healing and personal growth because of misguided policies and social stigma. But the tides are turning. Science is beginning to catch up with what indigenous cultures have known for centuries. Psychedelics, when used responsibly, can offer profound benefits for individuals and society. They can help heal trauma, treat mental illness, and foster a deeper connection with ourselves and the world around us. The demonization of psychedelics was born out of fear and ignorance. But now, with the benefit of modern science and ancient wisdom, we have the opportunity to change that narrative. We can shift from demonization to understanding, from prohibition to regulation, and from fear to healing. Thank you for listening, and I hope this talk inspires you to think differently about natural psychedelics and their role in our world. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. I wish you a life full of wisdom, and I'll see you next time.